Hi, my name is Sharon.
Hi, my name is Ben.
And this is the Creative Odyssey Podcast.
We're here to talk about the creative process.
The good,
the bad,
and the ugly.
But more importantly,
we're here to create together.
Whether you're a creator, a dreamer,
or just curious about the creative process,
explore with us
as we figure out what it means to be a creative
and build a community
that celebrates the creative journey. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Creative Odyssey Podcast. This is episode 10. We finally made it. Double digits. This is so cool. Welcome to 2025, Sharon.
2025.
Let's go.
I did not think, like you said, I did not think we would be here. So, super exciting.
I know. I'm so pumped that we are continuing this into a consecutive year. We started in April, so it's not been quite a year, but we're almost there. And what an experience so far. I mean, there's been so many bumps and bruises that we have endured. Specifically, technically, this is the, fourth time that we've tried recording this episode here just because of technical difficulties.
We're in the transition of equipment. We are upgrading. It's just not today.
Just not today. We thought it was going to be, but oh man, yeah, it's super cool. What are some of the milestones that you're most excited, proud of, or most notable for you so far?
Hands down, the fact that we didn't give up.
Okay, I agree with that.
Hands down, I think. For me, the best part is that I think everybody starts a podcast, and we were real when we started. We were like, okay, we can't do the weekly episode route like anybody should be doing. Our goal was to have fun, but more importantly, like break down the process of creativity and see how we can help people. So I think in that sense, I'm so proud of what we have done. Before I get into what we talked about last year, I think my favorite lesson from this is learning how to do this. You and me. Understanding like the dynamics of each other.
Right.
Like I want to say this, like it's so funny, but like I was joking with Lizzie, like it's almost like Ben's become my work wife, because the point is, this dude right before I walked out of my house, he sends me a list of things to bring, and I literally took a screenshot and said to Lizzie, like I think he's officially my work wife because he's doing what you do.
As soon as I sent that, I'm like, I bet you Sharon is gonna think along those same lines. I'm like, I wonder if Lizzie does the same thing. So you and I had the same thought.
Because I think it's hilarious that we've come to a point in our relationship, I think we can call that now.
Yeah.
And to say like, I don't know. I think because you and I are both married, and being married and to a successful, the path to a successful marriage is constantly working on these things and how to be better towards our partners and understanding love languages and all that kind of stuff.
Communication.
I think that played a massive role in how we like gelling and how we bumped and how we figured out things, and I made a video, I'm going off topic, but I made a video, like a reel about emotional maturity and how you shouldn't always just start something when you're super young. If you could, but make sure you have the emotional maturity to deal with it, understanding what it looks like. And I think both of our life experience kind of prepared us for this moment. And like, okay, we're doing this. It's for creativity, must be fun, must feel right. We must learn. We had these criteria set up. So every time I went off track, you'd be like, no, it must be this, remember?
Right.
And every time you went off track, I'm like, remember, this is what we said.
Right, yeah.
And I don't know, I'm super proud of what we have done, just in that regard.
Right, yeah, I feel like we've built a very unique relationship in the fact that we have to have conversations that are both teaching to others, but also like very examinatory to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that really makes it like, oh, we have to be, we can't be faking things here. And so it extends outside of this podcast. And I think that where you and I gel the most is that unique difference in our personalities. It just meshes very well.
Yeah. And I think both of like creative eccentricities, which I think is a good thing sometimes, they both gelled well.
Yeah.
You know, your technical side and my analytical side
Right.
worked well. Real quick, so our goal was that our goal was to help creatives, and our goal was for us to learn. So, a quick recap about what we talked about last year. So we started off talking about the importance of reaching out, which that's what I did.
That's
and
what kickstarted this whole
we
thing.
wanted to keep it authentic and talk
Yep.
about that. And then we went to like analyzing what if we are a creative and what a creative is. And that was a cool process of really breaking it down. And then it took us to embracing your creative identity, which I feel like that's where a lot of creative people get stuck at. And then we went and said, okay, now that you have embraced your creativity, what's next? You're going to experience creative blocks. And so we talked about that. And then we really, this is my favorite episode ever. It's becoming creative block proof.
Yeah.
That was when
fun.
we really pulled out the butcher block paper on the table right here and just started scribbling all over. Ben had a really tough headache afterwards. And he said,
it was mentally taxing, to say the least. It was a lot of fun and very rewarding in the end, but coming up with that idea of prototyping your way out of creative blocks was just it's helped you, it's helped me. I feel like it's helped whoever has actually listened to that, the feedback that we've gotten so far. It's been fantastic.
Absolutely. And I think I've also learned that not everybody likes brainstorming with me.
Right.
Which is fine because I am pretty extreme when it comes to brainstorming. So we went into after that. Once we accepted the how to become creative block proof, we went to talking about why change is hard and really talking about the reality of it. Okay, it's great that we came up with this concept, but can we actually do it?
Right.
And
yeah.
So
and that's where I tried to actually apply it, and where I had so much difficulty applying it.
Right.
I was like, wait, what? I thought this was going to be well, here's what you do. And then I did it, and I thought it was going to be easy, and it was not.
Yeah, we put our own concept to test, and then we realized we had some loopholes, and I love that we actually addressed that, and because if not, we're not going to grow.
Right.
After that, we had Joey Liberto talking about positive engagement with other creatives, encouraging creatives, and things like that. That was super cool experience.
That was fun.
We had our first proper equipment issue in the audio.
Oh, yeah.
And
That was fun.
right, and then we kind of shifted things and said, you know what, we want to have more people, and that's when we decided to have the guests and
ushered in the era of music into our Creative Odyssey podcast.
Yes,
Where we had the jam first externally.
Yeah.
We recorded that, released that, and then we talked to those three guests, Emmanuel, Joseph, and Caleb. Super fun.
yeah, I think we can easily call that they're part of our Creative Odyssey family.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. 100%.
And then after that, we actually ended up doing an event, which blew my mind. It still blows my mind, but Ben, you want to talk about that?
Sure. I think it's so cool that it kind of just... I don't feel like we ever had this on our radar, and then we're all musical, right? All five of us are musical. We're like, hey, let's do this. And then we're like, what if we do this? And it just we never really had our goal is to have a concert where people come watch us. It just kind of naturally, that was the progression. Yeah. And I think that's what felt so right about it. It's just this is the next step, which was the Odyssey Sounds Creative Jam, Ambient Jam, and Creative Meetup.
Yep.
Which is so cool. I mean, everything about it was just oozed creativity because there was so many creatives who showed up. First off, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
All 50 plus of you who ended up showing up. So cool that...
Can you explain what the event was? Because I don't think we talked about it
for people who are not aware of that. So, as I just mentioned, we had that jam that we had released earlier in the year, and we decided we wanted to jam again and record it, but this time we wanted to have people there with us and watch us record this, which, became kind of an ambient jam session, recording, concert, whatever you want to call it. We refuse to call ourselves a band.
Yeah.
We're just a group of musicians who like to collaborate.
Commitment issues.
As soon as we label ourselves as a band, we're going to have issues. So we had...
Ensemble.
I think the coolest thing about it is that we kind of had the idea, and it wasn't really solidified until probably 3 weeks before. Like, I feel like we had the idea, but we didn't have the venue. We didn't have the time until 3 weeks before. And we really didn't start broadcasting it until maybe 2 weeks before the event. And we still had that many people show up, 50 people. I think more than 50 people showed up. And Jen and Robert offering
tell
their
the story
location.
about that, yeah.
So
how we found the location.
While we were discussing this with Caleb, about what our idea was to have this recording in front of people, we're like, we're going to need a space. We can't do it here.
Yeah.
We couldn't really find a suitable space. So Caleb's like, I'm going to put this out on Reddit.
Yep.
And sure enough, some random dude we've never met before, Robert, thank you for responding.
Seriously.
He's like, oh, my friend Jen has a location right in the middle of downtown. Not only in the middle of downtown, but the original city center of the 1800s Cleveland.
Right.
So smack dab in the center of where all the roads coalesced is where this warehouse is. And so we go to visit them and meet them, and they are super cool, so happy and cheery, offers beers immediately, and just like, they start offering us food and everything,
I know,
too. I was
they
like,
wanted us to stay the evening when we came. They were grilling.
Yeah. It was so kind of them, but we weren't sure at that time, like, okay, what is it going to cost us? Like, we have a very limited budget, and they're like, no. Please use it as you see fit. We love the creative community. We want to expand, the horizons of whatever the Cleveland creative community is. So come here, bring your people, and we worked out all the details. So we are forever grateful to Jen and Robert for opening up their place downtown. We're going to have more.
Yeah.
We hopefully want to have an outdoor concert in the summer sometime down there. There's a big field.
And the coolest thing about the significance of all of this, which I never mentioned, is so we are in Cleveland, Ohio, and Cleveland, Ohio, there's a renaissance happening right now in creatively, and what I realized was there's this huge division between the east and west of Cleveland.
Sure, yeah.
And my thought process was, as this renaissance is happening, I think creative should be the one at the forefront, like creating the narrative of where Cleveland is going. And I think to do that, the vision I had was to bring Clevelanders, East and West creatives, onto the middle under one roof. And I think we achieved that to a certain extent. Again, we didn't put on social media until 2 weeks before the event. And I'm also super proud of that kind of campaign we did, social media campaign. The three of us, Caleb, Ben, and I, we went and recorded the whole thing in front of the Cleveland sign, and I just the whole afternoon, and I was just super blown away by what we could do, what we could get done in one evening, and make a whole campaign. And the best thing is, the first video we put out, 1,600 views.
So cool.
We wanted to put the podcast out there in Cleveland and to say, like, we're not just a podcast, we're trying to build a community, and we actually want to help Cleveland creatives.
Yeah. And to be clear, the numbers, the views, cool. It's about the reach.
Yeah.
We want to reach people so we can bring people together.
We want to actually make a change and help creatives do more things, because more creatives do, more art is going to come out, more change is going to come out, and more free people are going to feel when it comes to expressing themselves. So we've said so much about this event by now, but super excited. We're going to be doing many, many more events this year, partnering up with other kinds of creative groups and organizations and things like that. So
quick shout out to everybody who came out, including Zeal Coffee Company.
Yes,
thank you so much for coming out, providing coffee and hot chocolate. It was it made the whole place smell delightful. It's like you walk inside the garage door, it's like, oh, we're in a coffee shop.
Yeah, it was in a warehouse / garage, by the way, and it was super cool. One last thing I want to say. The best feeling was seeing the audience listen to our music and like at points like close their eyes and really like they weren't sleeping. I could see that because they were just like
They were standing up, so
yeah, it was super cool to see. And we could go on talking about that process and what our music was and all of that. But it was
for
an
sure.
ambient jam,
But
yeah.
if any of you guys have any like feedback or stories from that show, those of you who showed up, please comment, make a reel yourself and tag us in it, whatever. We would love to hear about your experiences. You can DM us if you don't feel like making a reel or whatever. We just want to have feedback from that. We want to have more collaboration. That's what we're all about. And I think one of the cool things before we move to our actual topic here is on the back wall, we put a big piece of butcher block paper where people could write down whatever. We basically wanted to see who was there.
Yeah.
And I think really the coolest thing was the variety of creatives that showed up. We said like, what do you do? And like, what's your Instagram handle or tag or whatever like that? And we had so many different people who did different things creatively. And it was just so cool to see all of those people there enjoying all of us creatives creating live.
And we also asked people like what projects they want to collaborate with, and what ways they want to see change happen in creativity in Cleveland and things like that. So we have answers. A lot of people shared, and I need to find that butcher block paper.
Yeah, we'll share that on our Instagram.
One final thing about this update: when my motivation and ADHD does the job, we will be putting out the actual full recording of that concert.
Oh, that's right. We did record it. You have it all.
You know, as creatives, we are struggling with the editing process. It's
I love
slow
editing,
and steady.
but yeah, there's just so much.
Exactly.
To edit. There's a lot to edit.
But I am super proud of the music that we created. It was totally impromptu for the most part. Really, it was.
Yeah, we had some ideas, but it was mainly impromptu, which I think segues perfectly into our subject today, which is we're calling this the case for curiosity.
Yeah.
So I'll start out by kind of defining what curiosity is to me, what the dictionary says. But I think that why we want to talk about this is what the dictionary says is the definition is a strong desire to learn or know something or to try something. And for me, I think it is navigating the unknown and being okay with trying something that's unexpected, something new, something that I haven't done before, and going deeper down that rabbit hole of what that means.
Yeah.
So it's like listening to that urge to do something.
The urge.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that makes creatives like us do crazy things, and in front of the world we look stupid. You know, like I think that's one of those. Every time I think about curiosity, I think about some, I don't know, random person doing something completely random that they shouldn't be doing or the world doesn't expect to, but they're doing it so happy and they look completely delirious.
I'm laughing right now because it's bringing me back to my childhood with Curious George.
Oh.
The monkey who always was so curious. He got into trouble doing things that were unexpected, all that. That is, I feel like, my very first interaction with the idea of curiosity.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Curious Ben.
Oh, man. Yeah, you could corroborate that with my parents. I was always getting into things, always doing things unexpected.
Right. So the reason we bring up curiosity is essentially curiosity is a key to creativity. So as we examine this journey of creativity, and every time there's an urge or every time there's this vision you have to create something, as creatives, no matter how much you plan, let's say a content plan or a monthly some content plan or a whole bunch of stuff, no matter how much you plan that kind of thing, for a creative there must be some aspect of curiosity or entangled into that. At least that's what I'm seeing. Like when I look at doing social media for my stuff, I have to have some kind of curiosity or some kind of like, ooh, that would be fun to do, even though it's hard. Like that go get an idea mentality must be there. So what I found was usually because of how, either money or resources, right? We don't allow curiosity to really blossom or even attempt curiosity because you're like, well, that just seems like a waste of money or that just seems like a waste of time and that kind of thing. And or the other end of it is like it's like perfectionism too. It's like, I don't know if I can do it well, so why would I try it anyways? Oh, it's too big of an idea, I'm not gonna do it. Like, why? So it often blocks that whole creativity process. And the beautiful thing about curiosity is every time you have that urge, it's almost like, oh my gosh, we're gonna go on this journey, because the moment I get into this, I'm gonna start learning so many new things.
Yeah.
So many things that's gonna help me grow and learn about a different subject.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool, too, is that urge that you mentioned. I feel like we mentioned this on many occasions. If you're a creative, you know what that feels like. I really feel like that is curiosity saying, hey, follow me. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, where are we going to go on this journey together?
Yeah.
And that flood of endorphins or whatever you feel when you're like, ooh, yeah, let's make something like this, or let's create whatever. That urge, I think, is a very strong correlation to what curiosity is, if not the exact same thing. And I was struggling before trying to actually label that urge. I remember when we were having a conversation about it, I'm like, you know what that urge is, right? You know that feeling? I feel like curiosity is that.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the other side, I just realized as you were talking about it, it's like, you know how like when you get married, and after about a couple of months, you start to see like, oh, a side table there could have been nice. Oh, you know what? I should put like a little shelf there to put stuff. And usually the easy route is ordering something or online. And I don't know about me, it's like usually like, oh, I want to save some money. I want to make it on my own. What I realize is even that is curiosity, because there's some like excitement in like, oh, I could try to build that.
Yeah.
It is about saving money, but it's mostly about saying like, I could actually try to do that. And that, I think, is the best thing about curiosity. It's like, okay, how can I still achieve it, attain it, even if I don't have the money? It's so powerful if you think of it. It's very philosophical. It's like, I don't have money, but I have curiosity, and I could actually get out of anything, and I could make anything work and be creative. It's almost like a superpower at that point.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like the devil's advocate in me will say, or what I've heard anyways, is like, okay, so you have this thing you could buy for, let's say it's $100, or you can make it and spend 40 hours of your time and $90. It's like, yeah, okay, understandable. But I think the big thing that's missing is that curiosity and that feeling of being able to make something yourself basically out of nothing. Right. And I think that's the very inception or the beginning point of creativity.
And to all men listening to our podcast, that's the way for you to buy more tools.
Right.
And to
exactly.
tell your wives.
But look what will happen. We won't have to buy these things if I buy this thing instead.
Listen, that is actually a beautiful thing when you have enough equipment. Like, whenever you have a need arise, you're like, okay, I have that. Let me go put that together, and now you're done. So, anyways, we completely went off track. So.
That's okay. I mean, tie it back to prototyping here.
Yeah, so I think last year we talked about the concept of prototyping. Take the pressure off of perfectionism and just say, all I have to do right now is create the prototype idea of whatever idea and vision I have.
Yeah. So creating a very first rough draft version, it doesn't have to be the final idea.
Exactly. Like, for example, earlier in the podcast, I should start bringing them again. I made
little wood blocks,
wood blobs type, like very like abstract shapes out of wood, right? And it started as an idea. It's like, what if because I saw like on Canva, I saw this blob, and I was like, what if that looked like a 3D version out of wood, and then I engrave it and I put epoxy on, maybe I can put different colors. That was it. I was like, that what if was enough for me to say, okay, I gotta try it out and see what happens. I've never done this before, but I could try. And then when I did it, the more and more I sanded it, I kept touching it, I kept like hey, okay, it's getting weird. But like, but I've been just like, I put it on my office room, wherever I'm working. I look at it and I get inspiration to create and things like that. So my goal was to just create the prototype in that moment. The first one I did, like the 3 pieces of wood that I glued together wasn't fully, the seams weren't perfect.
Sure.
The grain wasn't matched. You could even see gaps between it.
But it was your initial draft idea, and you were on your journey to the final idea. And I think that's where that prototype idea is so profound, is because it gets you started.
Yeah.
If you're having an issue with like, oh, well, I know I want to get from point A to point B, but point B is so far away.
Yeah.
It's just like take the first step and just make something small towards that.
Yeah, because it was an answer to get out of analysis paralysis.
Yes.
Because half the time,
Yes.
creatives, like for me especially, I envision the whole project in my mind, and I examine every step of the way, and I try to make sure if I could do it and problem solve and all of these things in my head before I actually made it. And so when we came up with the concept of prototyping, that's actually when this started happening.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, you know what? I told people to create a prototype. Why don't I do the same? And I did it. And then I made the next one, and I made the next one, and I made the next one. And I'm like, and then months later, I looked on Etsy and I found similar stuff for like very, very expensive amounts. And I had no idea that somebody would buy a blob made out of wood that looks abstract and artistic. And I mean, that's a business idea I have, and I could technically go with it if I wanted to, but I'm not, because it's not my passion anymore. Like to sell it for people. I want to still make it, but I want to sell it.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe once I get my artist status, I can sell what I make, and people will buy it. Millions of amount of money. But I digress. So the answer. Creative block was the answer to analysis paralysis, and now we're saying curiosity is the answer.
Prototyping is the answer to creative block.
Right.
And then curiosity gets you to the prototype, the first prototype. So yeah, it's kind of like that urge. So I guess we could share some real life examples. I know you just shared your blob story, your wood blob.
Oh, yeah.
Which I love. I love the term wood blob.
Yeah.
But I think one of those, and I'll let you expound on this, but I really think that the idea of exploring and just finding out something new was the idea of Odyssey Sounds, which was our live concert jam that we did.
Yeah. Yeah, I think...
And I can't remember where it started or who started. If it was a collective thing, but I know all 5 of us were like, we want to play more together.
Caleb had the idea of doing a Christmas concert.
Okay.
He was the first one to say it. This is the part I love about our group is usually in a setting like this, you have one person like the CEO and the other person CEO and all of that. But in this unique situation, it didn't matter. We didn't have titles for anybody. Everybody gave their suggestions and ideas along the way. So it's like Caleb said this and we did that. I said this and we did that. You said this and we did that. We said no and we discussed. Point was, it was curiosity. Caleb saying like, what if we do that? And I'm like, what if?
Yeah.
Because I never thought about it. Again, commitment and like making a band happen. Any musician knows it's just nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
And so to be able
We're
to
still
do,
not a band.
We're still not a
still
band.
not a
Yeah,
band.
we're still
By the way,
not a-
just to be clear.
yeah, so it was experiment into see how we can all bring our creativity together and see how we can all jive. And I don't know, man. The beautiful thing about that is we walked into that concert without practicing.
Yeah, I mean,
There was no practice involved. There was none whatsoever.
what we played had not been played before.
Yes.
We had ideas and we kind of fumbled around in Caleb's apartment with what we were going to do.
Yeah.
But what we played was nothing that we had, like, there was no, like, okay, you're going to play this here, you're going to play this here.
Only thing is, the last song I've completely forgot which we had recorded, and I had completely made stuff up, and I wasn't proud of that one. But
Yeah. It is
that
what
was
it
how
is.
many? I think it was six songs we did.
Yeah, I think we did 6 songs over the course of like
Oh
an
no,
hour and a half.
seven.
Was it 2 hours? I know we had a break.
It's yeah. So
In
I
the
think it
middle.
was 7 songs, but out of the 7, 1 was not okay. So that
Yeah.
was, but it still was good. Anyways, so that was an example where we all just trusted each other's guts and
Yeah.
and listened to each other's curiosity and just collaborated. Like there was nothing we were gonna say no to at that point.
Right, the
We
what
just-
if.
Yeah.
Let's just follow the what ifs.
Yeah. And even the whole, I mean, I can go on forever, but the curiosity in that is one saying we want to do an event where we want to bring people from east and west of Cleveland. Again, who am I? Who are you to do that? That's one of those things that baffles my mind. To even think that that's possible is I don't know. I think I'm delusional at some point. I just believe in us too much. And then like when I went to see the location, it hadn't dawned on Lizzie, my wife, until I left. He's just going to a random person's warehouse in the flats. He doesn't know who they are. They just know a name. And she was freaking out because I didn't process that. And
So what's funny, sorry to interrupt you, but what's funny is like I had that feeling, like that same thought. Like I was like, this is a random warehouse, but there was some peace surrounding it. Like I don't know what it was.
I know, me too.
I felt like no, this is legit. This isn't somebody trying to scam
and
you
going
over or
into
whatever.
it, I didn't even know whether it was going to be free or not.
Right, we had no idea.
Like I was ready to say no if they said like asking for money, because again we don't want to spend any money. Yeah, by the way, we did that completely for free.
It's still
We
it's
didn't
just
charge anybody
incredible.
anything.
Yeah,
Thankful for Zeal came in and they didn't charge us.
I think the coolest thing too is it was like low key like BYOB.
Yeah.
And like the owners were totally cool with that.
Yeah.
Which is just like that is in this day and age, it's unheard of. Hey, I don't know who you are, but come on over and bring a bunch of your friends. You want a drink? No problem.
Yeah.
Like what?
Right.
What?
Right.
It's like a recipe for disaster. But I feel like the same feeling that we had about it going in, which is just like there was something special about this. I feel like they had
Yeah.
the same.
And I think the good thing is also we shared our video, the jam session we did on the Reddit post so that people could see who we are
Yeah.
and what we are about.
Yeah.
I think that helped
That
a
did
lot
help, yeah.
because they did listen to our music and they were like, okay, these guys are pretty unique. I mean, I think about this concept, it's completely fusion jam music. Pretty much, because you have the electronic stuff, you have the ambient stuff, you have the African instruments, you have the piano in the distance playing, you have a freaking melodica playing.
And whatever that 21 stringed instrument, the
kora.
The kora.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Such a cool thing.
And I think this is a massive example for a case for curiosities, because if we didn't entertain those curious ideas that we all had, we wouldn't have been able to do this.
Right. Yeah. There would be no concert. There would be no ambient jam session that we got to enjoy other creatives' company with. There wouldn't be a ton of stuff. And I think that's ties into kind of the opposite aspect of an idea I was thinking of, right along the lines of making music anyways. I do a lot of like producing and making music myself, and then
Really good music, by the way.
thank you.
Really
Then I don't
good.
release
Not
it,
saying it 'cause
and
I
then
like you.
Sharon comes over and says, "Dude, why haven't you released this?" I'm like, "Well, probably because I'm a perfectionist," and that's exactly what it is. And I'm thinking of a specific example of a song that I have been working on literally for probably 3 years.
Wow.
And when I say working on it, it's not like, every day I come down and put another note down. It's like I play around with it. I'm like, okay, that's good there. And then I spend a couple hours on it, and then I move on, and then I don't come back to it for 10 months or whatever. And that has gone on for a while. And I love the idea of the song, and there's still a lot more to do. But I remember a specific point where I was like, this is what must be done, and this is what I'm going to do here. And I couldn't get it to sound right. And this was my perfectionism keeping me from moving forward. And I think I probably had a couple of sessions of that where just like spinning my tires, like doing this. I'm like, nope, don't like that. Nope, that's not where I want to be. Nope. And so finally I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm just going to do something, whatever. And this is where the curiosity idea comes in, where I'm just like, whatever, I don't care if it sounds terrible right now. I'm going to explore.
Yeah.
And I'm going to learn something new. And I did. I remember learning a couple of new recording techniques.
Wow.
And sure enough, I was able to move on. At the end of the day, there's still like, it basically cuts off halfway through the second verse.
Yeah.
So I have more ideas, but I should probably just do the same thing to keep finishing it, just like explore some more random stuff. But I think tying into our case for curiosity is if you're stuck on perfecting something to the nth degree, like I do all the time, let that go, explore something else. Be a little bit more curious about that.
Yeah, and I think the case for that from 2025, and if you wanted to have a successful brand and build a community that understands you and wants to do stuff with you, is that like you literally have to post. If you don't post because of perfectionism, then you cannot find your people. So it's crazy how
I love that idea. Post to find your people. Post your prototype to find your people.
No, absolutely,
Yeah.
right? I think that's what it is. Literally, the beautiful. I think we live in an amazing day and age where we can do that. Unfortunately, it is our creativity that stops us from doing that because of perfectionism and things like that. And I think this concept of curiosity is I want to be curious to create so I can find my people, my community, my tribe.
Yeah. And that's something that I feel like was kind of a foreign concept to me. Because as we've mentioned, we've been creating alone for years and years and years. Yeah. And I didn't even think about the idea of, there could be other people who are doing the same thing with me and making me better.
Right.
And if you're stuck there in the same spot, there are other people out there waiting to collaborate with you to make a new prototype. And it's so cool to think that from this personal experience.
Seriously, because when I go to creative networking events and I start talking to people about creativity and the stuff we do, collaboration is like the natural next step. And people are just waiting. It's like, we as creatives, let's just be honest. We are hungry to create with somebody else. If it's music, we can't wait to jam with somebody. Like that idea in itself is super exciting for a creative person. So if it's making a video together, if it's drawing something, or if it's writing a poem or whatever.
Or like starting a podcast or something weird like that.
Right. And then try to juggle life and all of that together. Jeez.
Well, speaking of creating a podcast, what do you think? How would you say that the podcast has changed your direction or helped you in any way, or find people or whatever like that? How has that affected you?
First and foremost, I think the best way to see how the podcast helped me is to go check out my Instagram. In the sense, follow me, but
Shameless plug.
Share our stories. So no, what I meant. But the reason I mentioned that was you could see the amount of videos I created last year compared to the previous year. And then you could also see the progress I've made. Since I started the podcast to the end of or the beginning of this year. Yeah, if I look at it and I see, even Lizzie was like, wow, you are more natural in front of the camera. You are more articulate. Your thoughts are like there's more structure to your story. You are able to keep me engaged. Your music is not overpowering. Like things like that, right? The way I think has helped me, the podcast has helped me the way I think and how I do creativity. And I think the biggest blessing by going on this journey is the freedom I have to create. I do not care what other people think about what I do. I don't care about what I think about what I do. If when it comes to creativity, I create because I had the urge, because there was a curiosity, and I'm gonna listen to that like my mother yelling at me and to do something. It's become a like almost like a urgency. I mean, it's hard to do that when you're married and you have responsibilities, but I at least write it down somewhere like, hey, this is a great idea. I have a bullet journal, and so I can write it anywhere in a piece of paper and just that kind of thing. So it helps me get the idea down. And so the podcast has going deep into the concept of creativity and how I think and why I haven't created all my life the way I should be now has led me to like, okay, these are the reasons I'm doing it. These are the negative things I was carrying around. These are things that are not true about me. Also, I'm a creative. I'm an artist. I have something to say just because it came out of me, because I processed it. Not because I have authority, not because I have the followers. I don't care. It's just this came out of me. This is an idea that birthed out of my own introspection. And here I am creating something to help somebody else. And the best case scenario is 2025. I started posting again really content that I want to make and help people. And one video did really well on TikTok, and people were sharing their stories. It was about emotional maturity and not worrying about the time you lost. So many people shared their stories. I haven't seen that much engagement in my life, and I thought that's an example of indication of how this podcast has helped me. Yeah, and I'm just so much more free. How about you?
I think along those same lines, I feel like the freedom to create has definitely jumped up because of all of the subjects that we've talked to. I want to hit on your point real quick of what you said, the response that you had from your video. I feel like you've probably heard this with therapy and stuff, where hurt people, and healed people heal people.
Yeah.
I've not heard the latter part, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that journey of whether it's mental healing or, in this case, I feel like our creativity has been healed or has been watered and is growing a lot more than it ever has been. For me, I feel like you asked me this question off air a while ago, just about like, have you ever been more creative in your life?
Right.
And well, my answer is yes, I have. I feel like the authenticity of my creativity and the persistency of it, I've never had that in my life until like this last year or so. So, and this podcast has helped me in ways. Well, I think that the most unexpected way that it has helped me is actually listening back to our conversations.
Yes.
And I'm not like trying to sound arrogant or anything like, hey, we have all the answers and we're helping ourselves.
Yeah.
It was very unique in the fact that, first off, I feel like our conversations allow us to be randomly vulnerable without like planning it, just based on our subjects that we're talking about, which then if we listen back to it really helps.
Yeah.
Like, oh, actually, it's reminding us of what we talked about, but there's been several things that just the different steps that we've taken to discuss the subjects that we have made me, oh, actually, I want to look into this a little bit deeper, or I never thought about it that way. And it's helped me in my personal journey immensely. And just the idea of creating something that in turn helps me in the future was not expected at all. So it was really cool to have that journey.
Yeah, that goes to show, I think, our intentions are good. That if it doesn't help us, then we're not putting it on there.
Right. Yeah.
So that's awesome feedback. I think if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel or follow us on Instagram or anywhere else, I think this would be a great point. I think we convinced you why you should do it.
So yeah, we would love to hear feedback too.
Please give us feedback. So let's.
I was actually, before you move on, I was
Yeah.
just going to say, even if you don't like this video and if you don't subscribe, that's fine.
Yeah.
But share it, because we want to grow our community and we want the community to grow. We want the tribe to get together. So if you feel like you're part of that tribe, or you know somebody who is a creative, you don't have to like this, you don't have to subscribe. It'd be cool if you did. But share it.
Right. So as we kind of reflect on our podcast journey, some of the things that apply or we have been practicing applies to this concept of embracing curiosity over perfection. So main thing we must do is reframe our mindset. We must be free to create. So the moment you get the idea in your head, the curiosity, the urge to create something, you should brace yourself and be like, okay, I'm curious. Now what happens? Well, usually what happens is there's a whole bunch of doubts, or it's like, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then the doubts come where like, well, you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this. Therefore, should we actually be... Like we did the whole skit on episode 4, I think.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Me
the
talking to
process.
myself.
Exactly. The process of what happens. Like if you really sit down and if you're really honest with yourself, you know 100% that when you sit down to create, what usually goes, you know, play by play, you know that very well. So to reframe that, you first must be aware of what their process looks like. Be honest. Then see, okay, what about these things help me to create? What about these actions, thoughts discourage me from creating? In other words, not even listening to the curiosity. Once you do that, then you need to come up with reframing ideas. Okay, if this is my objection, usual objection, what do I have to say? Well, I'm just creating this because I have the urge to create, and there is no perfect idea or vision. There might be ideas, but I'm not going for perfection. I'm going for the prototype anyways. So no hassle, nothing, no stress. That's like the main part of reframing your mind, to say, I'm just going to create for the sake of creating and for the sake of the curiosity that I had.
Yeah, and I think the second bullet point in that is setting small challenges to help overcome whatever it is.
Right.
And small challenges could be very small. Like for me, I'm thinking about editing this podcast in the future, right?
Right.
Which is now running at 50 minutes. So I know that there's going to be a creative part of me that's like, I can't wait to do this. And then there's going to be a part of me that I just don't have any inertia going into this.
Right.
So what a small challenge for me could be is, let me set a 10-minute timer. And I'm going to start editing. And then when that timer goes off, I'm going to be done.
Yeah.
And so looking at that way, I'm going to be like, okay, 10 minutes, I can do 10 minutes. No big deal, whatever.
Yeah.
So I set that small challenge. Once that timer goes off, I'm like, okay, do I set another 10-minute timer or do I stop? And that's where I can make that decision now. And largely, because this is something I've been practicing recently, largely that 10-minute timer usually turns into a much longer timer and I have the momentum to continue doing what I'm doing. So that I feel like setting small challenges, whether it's a small chunk of time or it's a very small thing that you can conceptualize completely, like I'm going to draw a circle. I'm starting to draw a human or a face or whatever, and I'm going to start out by drawing 3 circles. That's your challenge, to draw 3 circles. Once you're done with that, now you can make the decision. Do you want to keep going or do you want to add a 4th circle or whatever? So I think setting small, conceptualized challenges that you can be like, I know I can do this. I'm going to do that, the end. And then you can continue on after that.
Yeah, I think for me, the next thing is also like when I'm going into the reframing process, I have to tell myself immediately, okay, I know I have a vision for it, but whatever comes out, whatever becomes the creation, that's what it's supposed to be. And so the moment that happens, then I can kind of celebrate that imperfection. Like, I look at the first blob I made and I know all the faults, like it's the back of my hand. But I look at that with so much admiration because I see it as if like I had this curious idea and I wanted to make it and I made it. And here I am, this beautiful, glorious thing with all of its imperfection, a testament to me being curious and executing a creative idea. That in itself is so powerful for me that it's better than creating the final vision I had.
So you're embracing whatever happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think that the next thing following that would be practice the what if thinking. So that would mean, so you have an idea, right? You want to do this. You've gone through these different things. What if you did this instead? What if you did this instead? And this is harkening right back to what I was talking about with my music. I was so dead set on this idea that I had, I didn't even think that, well, what if I did that? And sure enough, that what if turned into something that made me move forward with my creation. And I was able to keep moving forward, playing around with different situations, made me, made the song in and of itself turn out into something that was much more beautiful than I had originally envisioned in my mind. So, again, those tactics for embracing the curiosity over perfection is reframe your work, set small challenges, celebrate imperfection, and then practice what-if thinking.
And I think all these 4 things we said looks like what emotional maturity is.
It's very true.
Because what happens is you now operate from the mindset of emotional maturity as opposed to the status quo. The status quo is, hard work and produce and, get it right and, perfectionism and like quality is part of creativity. But still, like, there's all these standards that have been set up to us, right? And I kind of recently realized, regardless of how we were brought up, regardless of how our parents' parenting style was, there's a certain aspect of societal status quo pressures that are built into children when we're growing up, which we carry on for the rest of our lives unless we ask questions about our own selves and do the introspection and come to this emotional maturity. You can never get to the point of creating freely.
Yeah.
So essentially what we're saying is that it's if the reason you must do this is to get to a point of emotional maturity where you as a human being is not tied to these standards and preconceived notions and all these things and say, these must be over here, away from my head, and I am this person who allows to create, this person who has grace for himself, and just know that I am a creative, and therefore I just create, and whatever happens, it happens, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. And becoming emotionally mature requires intentional practice and And sometimes it can feel weird or feel off or feel uncomfortable. And I think we touched that back on the episode that we brought in, we didn't bring in. It would be awesome to bring in Joe
right.
Dispenza as our guest, but talked about how he reframes all these different things in the way that a lot of times when you're changing the way you do things or to better yourself, you're going to have to get over that hurdle of comfortableness. And the next thing that you're doing to make something different is going to feel unnatural. It's going to feel weird. It's going to be uncomfortable. And I have kind of reframed that recently. I mean, in the last year, I want to say, when I notice that I'm feeling uncomfortable, I immediately tell myself, and now it's starting to become kind of like second nature, is that uncomfortableness is growth. So right now you're growing.
Yeah.
This is a good thing.
Yeah.
So kind of like going into a cold plunge.
Yeah.
I feel like that is one of the most physically uncomfortable things
Yes.
you can do.
Yes.
But I think it's one of the most mentally powerful things that you can do because you are deliberately making yourself uncomfortable. And that change in there really makes you be okay with, okay, you know what, this is different. This is not something I've expected or experienced before, rather. It's uncomfortable, but if it's something that is positive that's making changes in my mind, I know that it's going to get me to where I want to be. It's going to make me a more emotionally mature, creative human, whatever it is that you're going after, whatever your goal is. And that's the coolest thing is like wherever you're trying to get to, whatever your goals are, even if you don't have goals, if you have like a nebulous vision where it's kind of like, I'm not sure exactly what I want, but I feel that this is where I'm going. There's going to be many steps along the way where you're going to feel uncomfortable, and think of that being uncomfortable as growing into that person that is going to become that future better you.
So if you're a creative, right now you have listened up to this point, I want you to stop for a second and really think about this. What are the ideas I'm curious about? What is that idea that I tell myself that's just too crazy, there's no way I can do that? Now ask yourself why. And there must be obvious reasons. But then start asking what if questions against those objections. What if this? What if that? What if that? Oh, okay, let me try this. I kid you not. When you tell yourself, when you reframe your mind to say, okay, this is a crazy idea. Let's just be honest. We acknowledge that it's a crazy idea, so our spouses don't freak out, right? Like we say, this is a crazy idea. I know that. Good. Now, how can, let's break the process down. Let me ask questions. Let me talk to this person about it. Let me talk to that person about it. That person said something really interesting on that thing. Talk to people, mull it over. And instead of saying there is no way, how can I do it? What are the ways? What if I do it this way? And that kind of mentality, it's time to do that because you're listening to this podcast for a reason. And I kid you not, I truly believe in finding our right people and finding the people that actually need our podcast. And I know for a fact that everybody who's listening to a podcast is because there's value in it. So if you're listening to already, I highly recommend go back to our previous episodes because you'll see the journey and you'll get to know us more. And we are really honest and raw in this podcast here. And so think about that. Think about those ideas that you dismiss because of whatever valid reason. Not valid, invalid, completely valid. It makes absolute sense for you to make that decision. Think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, think about that. It could be a valid reason not to do something and think about that. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So, kind of to before we wrap before we wrap up here, first off, I wanted to say if you're still listening and it's almost an hour into the podcast, thank you so much.
Yes.
We are so grateful for your participation, for your listening, and comment. Hey, I made it this far, Ben and Sharon. That would be sweet.
Yes. Oh,
you hear that?
Brilliant. That would just tickle my fancy.
But yeah, just to kind of recap here, I'll let you end the show here.
Yeah.
the big things, the recaps are, so curiosity over perfection is about the things we talked about. So exploration, freedom and pushing past fear, and being okay with being uncomfortable. And kind of weaving in that prototype.
Yeah.
That curiosity brings you into the first iteration of whatever you're going to create. But yeah.
Yeah, let your curiosity guide you. That's the whole point, right? Curiosity didn't kill the cat. Whoever said that, I need to find that person and tell them, you're an idiot. Like, you ruined everything. Like,
Well, let's put it this way. Maybe curiosity killed the cat, but it's not going to kill you.
it was a cat. You're a human being.
Are you a cat? Type in the comments below if you're a cat, all right?
I mean, I saw a video of somebody who identifies as a cat. No joke. But not even kidding. I didn't see this. And it was weird.
Okay.
But,
Okay,
so
if you identify as a cat, say, I'm a
Sorry.
cat.
But, seriously, let your curiosity guide you.
I'm sorry that you're a cat and that you're probably going to die now that you've been listening to us.
Oh, my God.
Sorry, okay.
Seriously,
But I digress.
let curiosity guide you and ask and follow the what ifs. Seriously, if you have a what if, you're way more ahead than anybody else who's not asking a what if question. And then please, for the love of God, make a messy prototype. It's not a perfection thing. And then once you're done, please tag us on Instagram or wherever so that we can cheer you on, because that to us is the best thing out of this whole thing, podcast endeavor. So, real quick, next time we see you, we will have guests.
Yes.
Super excited. They're going to be from diverse creative fields.
Is it going to be one guest? Is it going to be two guests? 3 guests?
It could
5
be.
guests?
Yeah, you never know. We don't keep it normal
We're going to have a
around here.
stadium as our guests.
Anyways, it's been a pleasure
Always.
spending time with you. Thank you for all the support you've given us. And until next time, keep dreaming. Oh, nope. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep exploring your own creative odyssey.
Thanks,
Y'all,
guys.
see you later.
Bye.